Will it be an easy fight for either of these two teams?
Oh, I guess we'll find out.
Oh, it's the big question that we've got. It's going to be Pawns versus NAVI. Both mixed fortunes so far, I think it's fair to say. You summed it up quite well for me.
I did. I have 2 notes on my notebook, my quick in front of me notebook, on one under each team. A mission.
Is that going to be detrimental to his gaming?
It might get in the way a little bit. My note under Pawns is cannot defend. My note under Navi is cannot attack. These are 2 teams that are really good at one half of this game.
We should have a really good half.
We should have a really exciting half, and then it's a half of who is not going to struggle the most. I can put that into a statistical perspective as well. Pawns, their best defense record is 2 rounds. They've only really been able to hold 2 rounds. Yeah, Navi, their attack record isn't much better. They had a good recent Playday, but Club might help both these teams quite a lot.
Well, it's back to basics, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, you know, if you're going to know any 2 maps in the entire pool, it should be Clubhouse and Oregon. In reality, you know, those Oregon's dropped off a little bit. We don't see anywhere near as much play there, but you need to be able to play those 2 maps because they are going to come up. As soon as you move, for example, if you get to a major and you're moving into best of 3s, you are definitely going to see those 2 maps cropping up. So really, you got to have a solid game. So yes, it could be a good leveler for these 2.
Mission, the hair is...
He seemed to be sort of chuckling at first, and I thought, is he
going to like tuck it under the
Is he going to get rid? But no, he seems to be sticking with, so okay.
All right, fair enough. We'll see, you know, how well it goes. Did you go through a scene phase, an emo phase?
I didn't myself. No, I've always been bold.
Dez did. Have you seen the photos of Dez?
I have, yeah.
Dez had a sweet...
I have one of the photographs of...
Oh, really? For like special...
Just in case.
It's like mutually assured.
It's like a red button.
Yeah.
It's like a red button moment.
Dez had a
you know, in emergency, press the button.
But if you are inexperienced, it isn't the easiest or the most comfortable to play with. We'll see how it goes in this, the opening half, the half, where, as I said, this is where both teams have been statistically stronger. Navi on their defenses, rock solid. And it's the same for Pawns' attack, but they just cannot get the mastery over the second half. So whoever's able to get off to the better start here could be the tell of the tale of this game.
That's it. You know, they need to then be able to capitalise on the other teams. We will say expected errors at this point, but, you know, that may not be something that we see immediately. Andrezi's going to get himself onto the East Breach, going to take all the soft wall off, which tells us that they're probably going to have a mission on the Maverick, and there he is. Thank you very much. He's going to take that reinforcement down, and the work is already done by the book. So as soon as he does, it pops open, and it is available for angles galore into there. They are, of course, trying to push across the top floor. They're not trying to attack onto CCTV, so don't get too excited, but they do still need those angles into garage, into cache, to be able to then push forward, sweep across, and force all those defenders back down towards the bottom floor.
It's the thing about this extension, it means that they have to try and pay some attention to it. You know players like Blur are going to be aggressive. Nath is just around the corner as well. And it's sort of been this little bit of mixed fortunes for their team in terms of who's been able to take these engagements. Thunder was sort of brought in to be a bit of an aggressive player. Hasn't quite been able to get into the strongest start for the role, but he's still been a good start when he's in a good position, and usually that's after there's been a little bit of a back and forth. Nath is waiting patiently, and Scyther hops in the middle and just pulls himself away there. I don't think Scyther knew about that positioning, and he's sort of lucky that Nath was already making a move there.
Yeah, he gets away with one there. He's going to be able to continue opening up, and I think he's going to be fairly comfortable now that those defenders have been chased away. He's taken out the default cam, and it is time to start moving on down. Scyther will get himself to the mezzanine of the main stairs, looking to get himself established inside a bar. Nath chased all the way back to site, and that leaves us with all 5 down there. So this will become a total defense from here on out. 2 minutes are done though, and there's a lot of work yet for Pawns to do. They haven't got any of the hatches opened up. They haven't got any kills. It's not the end of the world on Church and Arsenal, but they're going to have to get a wriggle on.
Now, as they pay some attention towards some of the utility buried inside the site, they're going to make sure they have a bit of a clean entrance here. There is that shield swing on the third church wall. It's left soft, and they're aware of this, but it means you've got to be a little bit cautious on your approach. The roll of the grenade underneath isn't going to get stopped, and the shield just dropped and rocked the smoke canister. It's going to find its way through onto Moto. Emission's just going to creep himself into the angle here, but it's always a dangerous one, and almost actually dangerous for the smoke. He pulls away, he pops another canister, 20 seconds, and a C4 just on the pop stops the hatch being rocked, and there's Exodus rebuffed on the other side of blue. Multiple sides and multiple points of ingress are all being slowed by NAVI, so they just go for it. Scyther screams his way down, tries to tuck him for the plant with Emission offering the cover, but he goes down, and Trade. Yak has that. The angle, and WTG with the drop has that Yak player, and now they can't quite get the solidity. Blur with the double, and Nath with the catch on the door leaves just one player on the far side. No time. And there it was, held off on the push. 3 different sides, none of them successful there for the approach.
Good defense from NAVI and able to lock things down. Burnt quite a lot of time to begin with and just left pawns, as I said, at the sort of 1 minute mark, maybe a little bit too much for them to do. They weren't really able to get themselves down for much of an attempt other than just running on into sight and trying to hide behind that pillar. But it didn't really work out that well. There was just nothing really paid off for them, to be fair. From the beginning, when they got the prone angle into Church, I like to call that the Palu angle. It's one of his favourites. He plays down there at the bottom of main stairs on the Nirvana. He did. Well, he didn't tell me, to be fair. I'm putting words in his mouth as it's his favourite. But what I will say is it's one of his most common angles.
I thought he came to you and he said, Tim,
it's one of my favourites.
the voice of Latam. I need you to know, it's one of my favourites.
Palu, let me know. You know... I'm sure he's watching. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But it's one that he very commonly uses.
Yeah.
Gets down there, opens that bottom left corner up with the Hibana he uses, and then just holds down sight from that area. And it just didn't really pay off. They got down their pawns, they got the control, but the defenders were still able to move across. There was just a bit of luck involved. Sometimes you're going to hit better shots than others, and you know they got a little bit of chip damage, but they got away with it this time. And NAVI, a good defense down there, and interestingly, are going to take us to bar and stage for the second one.
To be fair, NAVI were the team that sort of flew the first flagship hold that we saw in at least EUL on the site setup, but it was obviously with a different roster. However, as we said, tactically, statistically, and defensively, they're pretty good, this current NAVI setup, so it gives them that growth, that room to get a little bit creative with some of the ideas that can be put, because if we're thinking it, you know, players, analysts, and coaches of their opposing teams are definitely thinking it of this is going to be a strong defensive side. We've got to get a little bit creative and punchy. All of those Hot Pocket Goyo canisters of gasoline are generally spread, but with a couple down there on the stage, it means that default plant spot or that deep dive, more importantly, is going to be a little bit covered.
It's either opening up the angles, they're looking for that top floor control, trying to close them out and clear them out of construction, but with Blur holding that logistics mirror, they're going to have to do something different. I'm surprised we haven't seen the logistics hatch opened yet. That's going to be one of the main sources of pressure for the mirror player inside of the closet there, but they're not choosing to go down that road, and that is going to allow Blur to just comfortably sit there until that hatch is open. He is not going to move a muscle, and if they try to push through there into construction, it's going to be a problem. But the one thing I will say is that pawns might not need to. If they can just hold that angle, they've forced the players out of there now, which is the key. Nobody can use the hatch to deny onto the plant spot. It might be enough, but it will be a slim thread that the defuse hangs by.
The angles and more utility, and they're just going to get rid of this early. As I said, it's a big slow, so pop it when you can, and when you know you're not going to be charging through it, because then it's not a problem for you to think about later. They've still got to wait, and they've still got to try and set themselves up, and they finally go for a little bit of pressure elsewhere on the roof. Logistics, I think, is still locked in, but Yak and Blur are locked deep down in blue. They open up the hatch from underneath. They throw a C4, but it catches. And if that had sailed through, WTG was lost, and he does not know how close he came to potential death there. A little bit of improper timing and play, and that allows Scyther to start the drive elsewhere, and Pwns, they sort of get a freebie.
WTG just sat in cams there, as you say, no idea whatsoever. Sort of one of those slapstick comedy moments where somebody goes through blindfold, misses a ladder coming over the head, and just gets away with it. Scyther, he's looking down to hold that kitchen corridor. That's going to be one of the big areas to deny the plant from, but Thunder, he's able to find a mission. That's our opener, and that gives Navi the advantage, but WTG is getting the diffuser down. He's likely to stick this. Nitro comes out, and it gets the man. That was a good distance away, but it was close enough. Secretly doing some big work here, shuts it out, and NAVI go 2-0.
2-0, and you could see Pwns had an idea of where they wanted to try and get that kit down. They did pretty much everything right, but a scrappy C4 was the difference there between a 40-second counter towards the end and, well, a cold body and a cold kit and only a couple of players left standing. Gym Bedroom is where we're going to find ourselves on the third swing, avoiding CC, which a lot of teams have been recently. It doesn't really give you too much to work with on your defense. And here, Navi, as I said, they're getting off to that start on their side, and they're really able to put a little bit of work in. Pawns are knocking on the door, but as you pointed out, little connections there, like Logistics Hatch not being opened at the time it was. And sure, they still had the focus that they needed it to, but we saw Na'Vi going for retakes on places. We saw Na'Vi resetting themselves up on multiple different floors. They didn't really feel too concerned about the space that they'd lost.
No, not at all. And they just worked around it quite well. Like you say, wherever they lost, it was, all right, that's fine. We've got another method here. So they lost construction. They had a nitro coming out from basement. Granted, it didn't hit the mark, but they had another option. They had a plan B. They had something up their sleeve. This time around, it's going to be Na'Vi up on the top floor, Gym and Bedroom. And you start really worrying for Pawns here. If you're a Pawns fan, we know that they've struggled on the defence. They're currently struggling on the attack. Na'Vi able to continue locking these rounds down is not going to be a good thing for them, because if this goes 4-2, 5-1 on the defence for Na'Vi, it could become difficult. But Exodus, he's going to do what he can and open things up with a kill onto Thunder.
I think, yeah, he was just caught there spraying through the soft. I don't know if he expected to try and take a fight there and was just unluckily caught on a drone, or did actively, but either way, as I said, Thunder's luck, unfortunately, even if he wants it or isn't, continues to be a little bit rough being in that opening engagement situation. That gives Pawns something big to work with here. They can try and build behind, setting themselves up for the pressure onto the trade. It's something that they haven't been able to get at all, which is an early engagement, and this time it goes into their favor. So it's the start of potential success here on the third take.
Let's see if they can double down on that and extend that advantage. That's going to be the next telling factor. If this goes 5-3, it becomes a very difficult site to hold on to with low manpower. But at the minute, Na'Vi, they can just wait for their moment. If they can get that next kill, then maybe things aren't looking too bad. Nath just maybe overextending a little bit, getting excited, thinking there's an opportunity, but he's going to take some damage instead. Coming up towards the halfway mark, and Pawns are just going to have a little break here, get on the drones, see what can be found. Where are those defenders holding out? Where are the angles? Secretly sneaking up those back stairs. He's looking for a red stairs flank here, and if he pulls it off, this could be an absolute nightmare. He's in blue at the minute, and he's threatening around that area. Blur manages to find one with a toxic babe canister, which is big, and a little bit of a mistake maybe from Andreezy, but Exodus picking up secretly nice and easily.
Very well read there by Exodus. He made sure he was in a position to strike as soon as that player pulled himself down. Secretly, he expected all of them to be on the top floor, and it was just a clever moment there where they had a drone give the game away that someone was going for that rotate. Either way, it's important that Blur was able to stop the pressure on the opposite side. You can see Yak is kind of eyeing up the potential of somebody going inside what has turned into a shooting range. That gym area is one that is locked off with the castle. Usually it's to try and play a trick with the bandit against Jacuzzi Wall, but that has entirely been forgone. At this point, they're going for probably behind that bed, that default swing, and with that lock-in, the concern might be for the C4 underneath. That open hatch becomes a big bat, a big pressure point. The grenades roll all the way through. Nath is able to stand and survive for now. 30 seconds left on the clock, and a bit of a bout of an impact, but no catch on the Alder.
Blur coming with the challenge on the tight angle there. He's just going to hit the prone, go on the deck and see if he can get his man, and he certainly can with the shotgun. 3v3, can he get another? It's just too easy. Keep clicking mouse one, Blur, and you win the round, Nath. He gets either 1v3 now, and this has turned on its head quickly. Emission just straying into sight, trying to find something, but he's in no man's land, and one kill will not be enough. Two is unlikely to do the job for him. Diffuser in hand, Tantic's down, and Blur with a big round.
I mean, he is a player that does really love to get into engagements. He's cool. And there's a lot of words that you can throw into that space, but it's rare to have a player that can be in toe-to-toe engagements like that, and they just stay cool. They stay a bit calm, they stay a bit collected. And as a player, for his talent, his caliber, and his love of getting into engagements, you could take a screenshot of him pulling off a 5k ace and one of him, and everything's just a calm setup phase, and it would be the same. And that as an energy in this situation is everything you need.
It's there, the choice just to hit back down into the prone position, gets his second and then dips. It's just like you say, when he's in that rhythm, when he's in that groove, he's just so difficult to deal with. And it was a good effort from him, and he got 2 of the 3 that he needed, but with the time ticking down, it was just too much to ask. So that sees NAVI then in round 4, heading down to Church and Arsenal again, this time with a 3 lead advantage. Last time we saw them defend this site, it was in round number 1, it was 0-0. No, so yes, round number 1, it was 0-0 on the scoreboard at the time. They've now had their full defensive rotation, and they get to give this one another whirl.
That's it. Another time, another trip, and another chance of engagement here. And I guess it's seeing how it comes together for Pawns, because they're really trying to, I guess, get a bit of pace about them. And here, when we were here before, it was not pacey at all. It was 2 minutes that was played to the wind on the previous round, and they tried to find some of the aggression and control elsewhere. Here, Nath, he's dabbling with a slightly different direction. Do they know he's there? No, but to be honest, you hit the hatch in that manner anyway, just in case, regardless of whether you're trying to find the fight and the engagement there underneath. They're locking off Jacuzzi. This is the alternate, because before they went with an entirely CC-driven push and just hopped into the window. This time, a little bit more width to try and catch the rotation, but they're gone.
That's it. They've taken the decision. They've not held on for too long. NAVI, they managed to hold out for longer last time. As I said, they left Pawns with about a minute and everything to do, whereas this time they're going to have around double that amount of time. So there's no excuses for Pawns in not getting the utility cleared, in not getting themselves a clearer cut opportunity to get into sight and put that diffuser down under cover in a safer location. Blur is playing underneath Kitchen at the minute. He's on the Goyo, does have Nitro in hand, so it's something that they need to be aware of, need to be careful of, really try and get Scyther in there, maybe open up some verticals and just force Blur away. If they allow him to play in that area, it could spell trouble for them. And this Nitro, it's just primed, he wants it at main stairs. Nath is just running down there, he knows that Scyther's potentially following, but there's still mid-floor work to be done yet.
Blur, he's got it ripped and ready to go, so they don't hear the audio cue, but Scyther's still playing himself with a bit of caution. He knows there's danger, but Blur knows that he can't release it just yet. It is a hit and a wait and a hit and a wait, and now we get a little bit more repetition. So now we get a C4, but now Scyther put himself a couple of steps further away. There's angles and holes they've got to be cautious of, but it's still trying to formulate a push. Last time it was spread out. 3 different angles, and they couldn't quite get the success. They're going to see if they can try and force a bit more space for Exodus to work here. It's a 2-pronged attack this time around. 2 on the main stairs, and 2 currently on blue. Burnt behind the side. Nate's ready for a swing, but it's Thunder that opens it up. Takes care of Scyther. A drone around the game is going to give a bit of a reveal for Emission to try and move into the play space here. He doesn't quite get the full angle, and the stretch and the rotation is the first he suffers with Nath, with the lockdown Exodus, with the drive towards the back of the blue door, but it's all locking up. And Andreezy, in the meantime, with WTG on the shoulder, does huge work on the opposite side. They've spilled into Church. The more direct assault has absolutely come through for the team, but the kit goes cold. 15 seconds, and suddenly a couple of kills go away from them. Exodus puts us into a 1 versus 1. The last player is pinged on the drone. Does he know as the swing comes round onto the back of Moto? The kit's still cold, Thunder's still damaged, and there he catches him. The breach on pipes ring around the rosies, but Thunder is the victor.
What a last 10 seconds from Thunder there. NAVI in the final 30 particularly, able to turn that man count around, get themselves an advantage, but then Thunder just played that 1v1 absolutely perfectly, just keeping himself alive, giving himself every opportunity to find that kill, knowing that the diffuser was down as well. Beautiful play from NAVI, and that puts them 4-0 up, and this one is running away from Pawns quickly.
It is that moment where you sort of look at how close they're getting, but what are they getting it off of? It was a much better push from my books because it was more focused. Pawns, sure, they had roughly around the same sort of time, but the clear on those top 2 floors takes most teams 2 minutes anyway, and they were still doing some of the structural work with the caution to be applied to the site itself. But instead of it being 3 sort of approaches and mad dashes towards the site from the hatch, the double door, and blue this time, they knew that they could try and force some focus. It ended up being 2 players on the main stairs and 3 from blue. It was working. Oh, it was working.
Oh, it was.
It's working. It's working. Oh, no.
It did.
because they got a little bit too lost, things started to connect, and then there was a disconnect, there was the drop from the play on Thunder, as he said, on pipes, got the kit down, and then it got a little bit loose. And it's tough, especially for a roster that's not been together as long as others, and especially as a roster that's sort of struggling in the game so far, to have that stay together. And when one wheel comes off and you're screaming down a hill, suddenly things can kind of explode.
NAVI now guaranteeing themselves at least an advantage going into that second half, which takes a little bit of pressure off them. We know that attack has been a bit of an issue for them, so if they're able to now lock down even just one more of these rounds and get it 5-1, which honestly you'd have to bet on at the minute because they've been going very, very well, it really does put them in the driving seat. Exodus is going to take some damage on the main door there. Not going to lose his life and not going to continue challenging that, just moving away for the time being. And Andreezy's got himself established at the top of red as well, so not terrible progress from Pawns so far, getting themselves into the map at least, forcing those defenders back a little bit out of position. They've opened the logistics hatch this time. They're not going to allow them to just sit on that mirror, and they've had to drop away from it. So this time, instead of being able to use those verticals for as long as they did, NAVI have had to drop away and focus more directly on the site.
Well, now with a little bit more control, but still a body inside logistics, there's this pressure and this presence that Navi's not handing over. They get the reveal that nobody's close there, and they at least have the approach onto this mirror window, which they'll quickly smash, so it becomes a little bit of drop property. Blur's revealed, and he was tempted with a swing there, but again, this caution, it's been applied by Pawns pretty much consistently. More pings, more drones, more utility, and no intent catch. As you said before, they just need to clear the space. And the space is steadily being cleared. There's a body on the other side of a soft wall. WTG in a tight angle with the kit. Scythe is going to double it round, but it's Thunder that gets a mission on the far side. They get the opener. They have all this presence. He's about to hit a close rotate. Doesn't quite get the kill, though. Sprayed over the top, and there's the shotgun once again, locked and loaded. It's a very important pick back up. Two Pawns players get one apiece, but it all almost fell apart for a second there on just the clear above.
It really did, and that peek around the corner, just, again, it shows the fine margins we're working with. That gun barrel just pokes through, and that's enough information to then get hit with the shotgun. 35 seconds left to go, and Pawns, they've got to get something going here, and they've got problems because they've got defenders in positions where they want to play, where they haven't been moved. So getting into a position where they're able to get a diffuser down is not going to be an easy thing to do at the minute. They've got at least two challenging from the direction of Kitchen Corridor secretly in a key position there. 15 seconds left to go, and the attack is mounting, but Yak, he gets quick and aggressive onto those main stairs, finds his man secretly. It's just like NAVI know everything that they're doing here secretly on a big game so far, and that continues. Round 5 goes to NAVI, and it is 5-0.
NAVI 5 in a row, and generally every single execute has... I mean, there's been moments like there where they started to bite back, they started to pull things together, but it's still cautious, it's still a little bit oversteady. The one time it looked like they were really in control of the execute was around that 4th round where things just fell apart, when things started to fall apart. Here, once again on bar, it just hasn't quite had that connection. They went for an entirely different approach. They tried to dedicate more in terms of getting control above. As he said, fine margin. If that swing had gone into his favor, sure, he was likely to be picked up by the player inside Gym because they were firing over, but then that player inside Gym died pretty much instantly afterwards. It would have potentially kept you one more body standing afterwards in that follow-up engagement. It just takes one of those moments.
Fine margins, fine margins. And right now, the margin between these two teams is anything but fine, with NAVI 5-0 up, Pawns staring down the barrel of a potential 6-0. But there is one big asterisk against that. There is one big caveat here, and that is that NAVI are a side that have struggled on the attack so far. I'm not saying that lines them up necessarily automatically for a run back from Pawns, because Pawns have also struggled on the defence. So you wouldn't put them down as the side that are likely to come back at the minute from a 6-0 deficit at the half, but that is something that NAVI can really take here if they just hold on one more time. This time, it's going to be Gym and Bedroom again.
So, Pawns, are you going to be dabbling with death every single round on your defense, or are you going to set yourself up with one? One was technically all BDS needed, in the opening Playday, where they're able to come back and beat NAVI from being down 5-1, and that's the sort of story that I guess has unfortunately plagued NAVI a little bit, at least in the opening couple of Playdays. They obviously pulled themselves their first win on the previous one, and since then, well, if this is how they're going to be performing, it is a much better pace, but not there yet. A lesson they also learnt from that, and one that they're going to gauge with every bit of movement and momentum they try and carry on. It's been a very balanced performance from NAVI as well. Statistically, all of them are stepping in, and that is one of my favourite things about this roster.
Yeah, they've all had their contributions. There's been big round-defining moments from a number of the names. Blur, Thunder secretly jumped straight to the tip of my tongue because they've had those moments that have won rounds for their team. Round number 6, is there going to be a winner in this round for Pawns on the roster? That is the question that we've got to ask. They're looking to push towards CCTV and Cash side. They're opening logistics. They're looking to get control of construction, which they now have done. A mission is in there, and they are pushing NAVI back halfway through the round, and NAVI pretty much now just pushed all the way into sight, just trying to hold angles. Blur in that closet again. He's unlikely to get away with this twice, and Scyther, he's going to drop in and get that opener. Finds himself a second onto Thunder, and this is now a platform. This is something Pawns can build upon.
There it is. Nath suffers as well. He's trying to drive himself back into that corner, throwing the impacts. There's a huge amount of damage. It's a C4 that catches one, but there's a quick bite back. A fight at the top of the brick stairs. Yak gets that cross angle, and suddenly it's a 2 versus 2 with a cold kit. Almost traded off, but now it's a 1 versus 1 out of nowhere. Andreezy finally finds the first for Pawns, but it was so close from being a sure set thing to another round loss, and you can see it on their faces. They know they can do better, and now they got to prove it. Only 1 round.
There was just a second there where you saw it going wrong again for Pawns. It was fought down to the wire. That should not have come down to a 1v1, but NAVI just able to find kills seemingly out of nowhere, particularly at the top of those main stairs. It was an important one to put the diffuser down, secretly with great cover onto Yak as well. But ultimately, Andreezy, he found a way, and he gets Pawns their first round, and it could well be an important one, but they're going to have to show us something that they haven't done so far, and that is going to be a good defence. They are 5-1 down. They leave NAVI only needing to find 2 rounds, so they only need to find 1 site that they can win on here, NAVI, and they will take the full 3.
I mean, that's it. That's the mental, that's the pressure, that's the metal, and that's what you got to be tested with. But NAVI, they, as I said, have learned a lesson that you cannot get too confident because, well, let's throw our minds back to that BDS game. I'm really sorry, NAVI fans, to have to keep reminding you of it, but when it happens, it becomes an important point and a curse and a thing to break your way over. They won their first attack. They're on 6-1, and then BDS threw every single round after that together. But it's a lesson NAVI learned, and they learned it in the worst possible way by being taught the wrong side of it, and now they have that. They have that setup. They have that pace. They know they can control themselves, but it starts with a bit of a drive here against Pawns. How much can they control themselves to fight back in?
It's going to be a CCTV attack for NAVI to kick things off. They've got secretly on the Maverick straight up towards the East Breach to start things off, get things open. Blur's going to take the soft wall off, and that's going to allow them to open that breach in a matter of 30 to 40 seconds time from now, I would expect. Nath, he's going to open up bottom garage. This is all shaping up nicely. The next step that NAVI need is to be taking that player off catwalk. Have to get him dealt with quickly, and then it's going to be, I will say, should be plain sailing for them. Once they've got the breach and the catwalk, that should be that. WTG has taken a lot of damage on the smoke as well. Needs to be careful that he's not throwing his life away with that operator. Of course, the Toxic Babe canisters can be so essential to stopping the plant going down on this round.
Secretly lucky no one was paying attention there. Missed the top corner, but got it and is able to get out of there. Nobody inside either of the sites. Pawns have set themselves up as a sort of cradle around them and hoping that people lead their way in. And to be fair, with 6 grenades, yeah, you probably don't want to be on the soft wall of the sites itself, and you don't want to be where Exodus just was caught out. And the C4 does most of the damage towards Nath, but he's able to keep standing. There's a fight there through the drone hole, and there it is. Emision locks it off, and they're going to see if they can try and now put the pressure onto Scyther, but that body dropped from Lounge is a big blow. The Capital Bolt doesn't quite get the full connection, and it's a great take from Scyther as we hear more and more pressure being caught out. It's damage, it's fire or a grenade. Scyther has to sit it out, and unfortunately, when you're stuck between an exploding rock and a hard fiery place, the choice is generally going to be bad either way.
It certainly was. So Sadr, he lost his life, almost certainly. He's been down. There's nobody going to go and collect him from there. Emission is low health underneath, but it's unlikely that any damage is going to come his way until the push into sight comes through. We've got Blur and Thunder now trying to find a way in the late round. The problem that they face at the minute is Sadr in that down position, because he's acting as a human camera at the minute. So as soon as Blur pushes up there, that's going to give the signal to Pawns that the push is potentially coming, and that nade down there just tells me that he was a little bit concerned about the potential of somebody in oil pit, but didn't have an opportunity to really drawn that out. Blur almost on the sort of just control of his recoil, finds a mission there and leaves us now 2v2, 30 seconds to go.
Well, that's grenade underneath isn't going to get the catch on anybody. They know nobody's playing on those close corners, but it's an important swing round. WTG goes for the retake on Lounge, and Blur's been able to move into the site in that time. Going to take care of that Banshee and see if he can try and put the kit down, and as the canister pops right over him, he knows he's not going to be able to do it there. Pawns, they're playing this with a little bit of space. They're playing this superbly right now. They know they don't need to swing when it's coming through. WTG moves around on the back, pops the shotgun, locks it in, and gets around. They open it up, and that caution, he works much better on your defense when you're able to keep yourself a little bit stretched away. It's the first, but they need a lot more to have themselves fighting back in this game.
Absolutely essential round for Pawns to be winning there. No two ways about it. They needed that one. They couldn't let NAVI get themselves onto map point and have so many bites at the cherry, because you just know that they weren't going to waste them all. So Pawns get themselves back into things here. Show us a more capable defence than we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Not to say that it was perfect. There was still a potential opportunity for NAVI, but that came more on the back of good play from Blur than it did any mistakes from Pawns. So they're going to push on, and the next site they will be choosing for round number 8 is going to be Church and Arsenal.
NAVI, you had a couple of moments there and you could see it was a bit of a drive, but attacking CC, I mean, I said it before, a lot of teams avoid it on their defense because attacking it's become quite formulaic. That is where you know your game is your weakest. That is statistically where your game is the weakest. If we're going to point out how Pawns have only got a couple of defenses, NAVI have only ever really managed to thread a couple of attacks. It was over the first, I think, 3 Playdays or 2 Playdays, only 3 attacking rounds they're able to get. And that as a statistic is one that, again, you're trying to beat your way across. The same way if Pawns get this, they've equaled their best defensive record. Yet, it's a similar story for NAVI.
Certainly is. Round 8 kicks off then. We get underway and we've got a top floor presence. We've got the old Mozzie, Vigil and Mute combo up there. So it's going to be a lot of face checking for NAVI to do here on the attack. Need to go in and win gunfights. But that is something that they've shown a lot of capability to do so far on this clubhouse game against Pawns. So you wouldn't put it past them to be able to go in there and get some joy. Exodus, he's going to be holding a tight angle there from the bottom of the billiard stairs, looking on towards Strip. And it is Nath on the Ossa who is moving in that way, so needs to be careful, and the drone in here needs to be thorough from NAVI, because if not, they could find themselves losing that early man.
Wow, there's a bit of a break here towards the side of both. Hard reinforced walls over the top. They're making sure they have the pinch on the players that might be playing around there. It is that width to catch them, and that's why they're also pushing onto Strip to see if they can catch them. As soon as they fall down from the top floor, they're going to have to take a rotate, or well, you may as well have somebody set up to maybe stop them being able to pull it off. There is some caution being played here by Pawns. They're, again, keeping themselves a little bit at arm's length. They've wasted a good amount of time getting them in. It's now down to NAVI, as I said, to try and use this next minute to push them further down. It takes about 2 minutes for most teams to do a full clear over these top 2 floors, and Amision is going to see if he can waste as much of that as possible.
I think he's just looking at potentially moving himself in towards site slowly, but as you say, just wasting as much time as he can on the way back as well. He's just tentatively, he's back down blue now, so that is half of the round done, but NAVI now have an opportunity. They've got map control, they've got the hard breaches on site, they haven't lost anybody, so they've got all the tools that they need. Nitro is going to come out there, is not going to do any damage realistically. I think it maybe took about 5 HP off Blur at the absolute most, so now NAVI can start looking at getting themselves moving on towards site. There's going to be pressure towards blue, pressure into kitchen, and that's what I like to see. Multiple angles on this attack. Either just being able to try and use those verticals against them. They do, of course, work both ways. Need to be careful that they don't go giving up any easy picks, NAVI.
Now, as they use the Salmas to try and break it, it's the impact that just goes for the catch onto the first and the second. Lucky you can pick those back up, is going to be able to get itself popped in and locked off. There is another impact to get it. No. The Selmas are able to get that open, an important hatch, and you see Moto pop at the same time. 30 seconds. Still a 5 versus 5 that's about to erupt from a couple of different hatches at a couple of different times. They're stacked up with the kit. They're going to see if they can try and maybe muscle themselves off towards the back of the boxes. Andreezy suffers, but with the Mission lying down and waiting for this, it is baited hand. Secretly gets the opener, and Nath goes down with the Oster Shield, goes for the deploy, and the C4 doesn't quite get the catch. The smoke is on default. He knocks it out, so they can't see that he's behind it. They don't know what he's doing, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. NAVI lock off all the remaining kills around it, and it was a very clever Oster play that Hap has waited for a long time, is for someone to put an Oster Shield down and punch it so people can't see what you're doing behind it, and he's not here to watch.
It's I think I've seen it once. I don't know if I've got Rogue in my mind for some reason. I think
you always have Rogue in your mind.
Yeah, I think we've seen it once. It was Rogue, and exactly the same reasoning. Yeah, just get it punched out. You can't see what's going on there. Obviously, yes, it does remove that functionality for yourself as well. So it's another one of those, like everything in Siege, that has two sides to the story. But two sides to this story there is not at the minute, as NAVI get themselves onto 6. And they are running away with this. Pawns just unable to be competitive inside of this one and are really struggling to get themselves on the board defensively as well. That's 1 out of 2 rounds, and at this point you wouldn't put it past NAVI to just win it here and now.
NAVI 6-2. It's not quite the 6-1 curse, so you're all right. You're in the clear. You can try and drive it here with a little bit of pace, but you can still see from the round cams at the end of that, they're making sure they keep themselves controlled. Yada yada, hard lessons learned. Yada yada. Pawns, unfortunately, they are sort of being handed a little bit right now. There's these little bites, these little breaks back, but there was all these other engagements going on, but the drop from the hatch was still allowed to continue. They sort of trusted the default plant spots. 30 seconds, and you've got 3 smoke canisters. At that point, if you're still expecting, you're always expecting a push in that window. Why wait until you hear the go-ahead to drop it when just playing one of those a little bit early underneath the hatch might cause them problems, because it'll either force a movement elsewhere or it'll delay their movement entirely, and you've got 40 seconds worth of that in your pocket.
Going to be opening the Jacuzzi breach as a matter of priority. Same tactic as we've seen before, not entertaining any potential denial, just using the Maverick and Sledge to burn away the reinforcement and to smash the soft wall out of contention, and that's going to allow them access as soon as Secretly is done with his work. You just feel that the entry kill in this one is going to be super important. If NAVI get themselves an advantage, I can see them going on and winning the round and the match. Blur, you're going to have to try again on that one. Just being cautious, doesn't want any explosives coming back his way out of the logistics hatch, so he's just going to take it down at a distance. That will be done. Make it a little bit more uncomfortable for players to keep themselves locked down inside of there for Pawns, and now leaving us still 5v5, halfway mark, but NAVI going pretty well. Is this going to be an easy one? Blur almost loses his life. He gets away with that Exodus, not wanting to overcommit to that challenge, but it's WTG elsewhere who gets the first onto Thunder.
That's it. Was able to strike from the window and the swing there and get that body down, and pulls himself actually back. No, he was on the window, but he didn't actually swing outside the window. He went towards the opening door on the opposite side. He's still looking for a little bit of aggression here, but as you saw and pointed out, that early fight almost went away from Blur, and he hot-footed out of there. He's going to go for a different point of ingress. At this point, Exodus has left. He knows they have the man advantage, and, well, he's able to add a little bit more to that. Nath caught out on an attempt to slip and slink their way in. They've done good work here, and they have a minute left to hold out against the remaining NAVI players.
Exactly that, and it is likely that they will be able to. Secretly having to switch around. This is not ideal for NAVI, having to mix things up and do things differently in the mid-round. They don't really have the time nor the manpower in order to do that. Exodus has got Secretly held down. He knew that he was pushing from there. Blur is not going to find his man. It's going to be a trade, but Exodus has done his job inside of this round. It is all up to Kayak at this point, and he's got a task ahead of him. 1v4. He does have Diffuser in hand, will manage to shoot the Nitro down out of the sky, but very unlikely that he closes this one.
That's it. They know exactly where he is, and they make sure he isn't there very long. 6-3. They now have themselves back. The momentum is in their hands, sort of. When it's back and forth, it's not really anyone's game, and their lesson now is to try and prove that it isn't back and forth. If they don't, they lose. That's now the constant worry all the way through the end of this. NAVI, they have 3 more chances. at least 3 more sites to see if they can lock this out. And it's going to open up on CC, where we've already seen success from Pwns.
That's it. They can go back now and they can just try the same site, get another round. It's all of a sudden 6-4, and maybe that mental game creeps in for NAVI a little bit. I think it's one of those that they really need to win this sooner rather than later. If they don't want to be looking back at the end of the day, wondering how it slipped away, how they ended up in overtime, how they lost points, they really just need to get this one done. Don't give Pwns any further opportunity. As you say, CCTV and cash it will be. NAVI, we saw them, I won't say deal with the garage well last time, because they sort of started dealing with it well, but then the Capitao bolt was missed a little bit. Either hit a beautiful shot, to be fair, onto Kayak at the door to take him down and not allow the second one to come in, but there was a lot of utility and a lot of time burnt out trying to deal with that catwalk.
I think it was a little bit par for a course of our current meta. So there's always conversations about what the meta is and whether it's driven by LMGs and what it's driven by in this aggressive window. Frag grenades are actually the tip of most people's tongue, and unfortunately the tip of most people's fingers as they fling themselves towards the floor underneath people. Pwns had a very underneath heavy hold here to ensure that if that game did start to be played, it was played very late. You're looking at, once again, a couple of frag grenades, but some less. They've opted instead to bring themselves more flashes to try and burn and potentially get more of a flat control here. And, well, they've realized that the hold underneath was done well by Pwns, so let's instead go for something a little bit more traditional.
Blur just opening up the jacuzzi side of things quite quickly. It may just give a little nod towards the potential for pressure mounting through bedroom and into construction. We can see that is happening. Silhouettes at the top of the screen just showing them in and around logistics. Thunder, Blur all trying to move in aggressively. Andreezy just put in a couple of pot shots out there, which would suggest that Pwns are aware of the push coming in from that side, and he's just trying to slow them down, just trying to delay things a little bit, not let them feel too comfortable. Thunder, though, he's getting aggressive here. He's having a look directly on into sight. They've got Kayak in there now with the hard breach as well. Nath is looking to clear out utility, and it's definitely shaping up towards a cash-sided push.
Well, that's it. Exodus is going to just creep his way in to offer some support here to Andreezy. They're trying to get the drone and the read on it. They're trying to drop these other parts of utility, the long throw, and that disc instantly, does get caught a little bit out of range, but the mute jam is gone, so they can now try and put pressure onto the wall if they want. You can see Emission sort of eyeing up a bit of potential rotate here. Scythe is still holding on because Garage is, regardless of whether they're pushing onto the B site or the A, very important. That cross angle across the top, there's the Selmas. And they start to pop and rock and get them a little bit more of an opening now. Just over a minute left, and NAVI still droning, still prodding, still perking. The push is going to start configuring soon.
So it doesn't really have too much of a sharp point at the minute, as they haven't managed to find that opening kill onto Pwns. Nath is sending the Rotero drones in, but it's Exodus ultimately able to find it, and it's going to be Yak taken down. Exodus will be moved out by that Rotero drone, but it's not going to be sufficient to put him into a position of danger. One nade is going to be caught out. A second may well be as well, as they try to still clear utility. 40 seconds left to go. NAVI, they need to start hitting these shots. They need to find those opportunities to shut men down, otherwise they're never going to get themselves inside a site.
Oh, there's a great take there to bring the body balance back, but there's those preemptive smoke canisters I talked about wanting to see on the other site. They made sure that regardless of whether the push is active or not, they're stopping it becoming active just by playing that. They're forcing and funneling. It's forcing NAVI to go for a bit of a rotate, secretly dropped underneath. WTG does a bit of clearing up, but Thunder does some of his own, takes care of the player on the top of red, instantly replaced. Blur goes down next. There's that important cross angle I talked about. Hey, what's that? That's a barrel of a gun. There's probably a person behind it, Cypher thinks. So he's going to start lobbing impacts and just catches the swing round, but it's WTG with a triple for the round, and we have one more going into the favor. 2 tied in a row to bring them to 4, but still too short of taking us to OT.
Still work to be done for Pwn, but certainly some confidence mounting here. They are locking this down. NAVI, all that myth, they need to get this one done, get themselves to overtime and match what NAVI were able to do. But it's looking good for them so far. They have done well. They're currently sitting 3-1 in terms of defence. Going to church, though, could be a problem. Round 8, this is where NAVI won. They come back here in round 11 to try and get this one locked down. 7-4 and 3 points is what NAVI are going to be looking for. We've got a similar setup. We've got the Mute, we've got the Mozzie, we've got the Vigil up on the top floor for Pwns. NAVI, they're going to start with that top floor clearance once again.
Okay, Navi, what's the tack timeout? And is Yak going to be able to strike hard, fast, and true with the Ying? It is a bit of a change of play, and obviously the Osso was the one that worked before, but to be honest, it was also the cover from all the bodies that happened very suddenly around the site. The 30-second push came together, and it's down to, as he said, Pawns to see if they can try and pull some of those wheels out and hope it collapses the same way was done to them on their approach that almost had a similar story with a quick strike. Thunder, talking of, the crawl in. They're not going to try and get punished the same route they went before. It's Scyther that's holding the swing connection here for the player that might try and rotate out from the top. He was there before, but there's a prep grenade and a little bit of movement and a perfect release. Gets the catch there, and they go almost instantly to try and swing onto that previous connection player, but that ping, that rotation, the couple of steps away, and then the couple of steps back in. Oh,
Andreezy's going to kick himself if he watches that one back. Nothing wrong that he did there, but just he's so close to moving himself unknowingly away from the danger there. The top floor clearance continues. I think they're pretty comfortable that they've got that done now, secretly getting in there and getting hatches opened up. They're going to start looking to aggress into blue corridor. They've got dirt tunnel, so this is shaping up well for Navi so far. They've got a man advantage. They've got multiple angles of attack. They've got pawns almost all pushed back to site, but I see that one is missing there. It's going to be Exodus over in strip. He could play spoiler.
Yeah, he's that loose thread, and a loose thread can just be the worst thing to ruin your new look, and he's going to see if he can try and do just that. The quick sprint towards Lounge. There was a bit of cover that was watching it before, whether it's still there or not. We're about to see a shotgun open up, and does! Thunder caught out there. Blur gets Scyther. They almost get the catch there on the swing, but round. Now he's stuck in a bit of a close fight. The C4 not quite connecting. Yak is between, well, a dangerous place and a more dangerous place. Exodus, he's back over the hatch. He's kind of waiting for a push to come through, but he's done more than enough because it's 40 seconds left. Almost gets the full catch there on Yak, just sprinting his way out. The Candelas drop, but nobody is there to be caught. Navi, they're trying to reconvene and go elsewhere. You can see a fight that's about to happen over the top of Exodus, where he's generally set up right now. They want to see if they can get this on the door before they try and get anything else but more. It's 20 seconds. Who's going to take it? They're playing this so well. Looks away the worst possible time. Can't go get the connection. The Candelas go deep, caught out. The shotgun goes deeper, but Blur's able to get it. They've got to see if they can get the kit down. Blinded, but it's just a single player. The hatch is theirs. Blur is going to see if he can stick it. A mission round the backside is caught. Navi pushed themselves just over the edge before it got a little bit too dicey.
I think not only but Pawns will be wanting to look back at that round to see just exactly what happened there. They were in the driving seat. Exodus was causing real problems for Navi on the mid floor, just preventing them running around at will.